I think we're live. And we must be on. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Tonight we're using StreamYard, so if we work out, it's good. It's good. Give us a thumbs up. And if it doesn't work out, give us a thumbs up. And tonight I have some wonderful guests. I got Dalibor Suchy and I got Mandi Moo tonight, all the way from Australia and Germany. Oh my goodness. Round the world we go. Amazing.
Hey.
Glad to be on the show, Robert. Glad to be on the show.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for coming. We got a lot of people pulling in tonight. We got Gaza Cav right in your backyard there. Amber Dawn, who started a new channel. Amber, you go right ahead and put that, oh, nope, can't do that. Oh, well, I got to do that on that side. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out. I'm driving the bus. And Brenda, Milky's mom, is in the house. Lucky Smith, he says the Soul Tribe is prospering. I am prospering. We are all prospering together. Thank you, Ariel. Thank you, Poel. And he is helping us. And Big Al's in the house. He says, what's up? And I don't know where he is tonight, but he's out there driving. Everybody send him some good energy so he can drive safe. Deborah Sloan is in the house. Grumpy Stack made it tonight, all the way from Louisiana. And we're all doing good. But tonight we're going to talk about crystals. We're going to talk about crystals, water, and electricity. What a combination. And it all boils together along with everything else we always talk about because they're all intertwined. And somehow, I'm not an expert, and I know you guys are, stuff. And tonight I'm going to pull out your expertise, as much information as you can think of, and we're gonna put all this stuff together because, like we were talking before we got on the show, this all ties into Tartaria, Atlantis, Egypt, all of that stuff. The crystals and the water and the frequency. They all tie into how the blocks were moved, how our history is conducted, the past. It ties into the worldwide cataclysm that came. Somehow it all fits together, and we are here. We're going to figure that out one way or another. So, anyway, where do we want to start? Mandi, you got any comments? You're pretty quiet over there.
No, no, it's just thrown me out a little bit. I feel like we're just going to solve a lot of things tonight.
We absolutely are, believe it or not. Tonight I got the feeling,
Well, everything's related to everything else you just mentioned because everything has an element of crystals in it, everything has an element of water in it, and everything has an element of frequency in it. And when you look back through history at what we know about things like the Schumann resonance, which is the resonance of the planet Earth itself, that's been increasing steadily over the years, ever since we've known about it. So, that tells us something about the effects that our technological society is having on the natural world, on the so-called electrosphere, to coin a term.
Yeah. Couldn't have said better. Well, I do have some slides I want to show you, get us going. And as everybody piles in, Divine Empress, Max Vision, Zigzagzilla. Hey, how you doing, buddy? We got Linda Brooks in the house. She was on the show the other night. We got Isby. Carrie's in the house. Oh, look at that. Carrie Bergman, thank you for coming. And Isby's in the house. If you haven't checked out me and Isby's show, he's going to start being I hope he's starting to put up his stuff on his channel pretty soon. And if not, he will, because I'm going to make it. Joanne Dancing Gypsy, thank you for coming. I haven't seen her in a while. And Big Al says he's in Arkansas tonight. So shall we start with these? I'm going to start with the slides or screen share. There we go. And where did it go? Oh no, where did it go? Hang on. I'm learning this what you call it is different. Okay, I got to put up another. Good thing I got two screens here. I did it earlier and then I screwed it up. And there we go. That's how I do it. Good thing I got a 2-screener. Okay, so here we go. Do crystals work? Mandi, do crystals work? Of course they do, right?
Yes. Yes, if we use them the right way. I don't think we've quite figured out the right way to use them yet.
Oh, and I know. I think that's the whole thing is. So we just don't know what they do and how they work. And here, I'm going to read a little bit of that because we were talking about the frequency. And I'm just going to skim over this, people. And if you want, I got this stuff. I could probably send it to you if you request it. So send me an email. It's in the description below in the link. It says, it's a gray area. Naysayers point to the lack of scientific data. Of course they do. Every natural substance vibrates at a specific, I can't say that today, frequency as a result of atoms, molecules moving. The Earth vibrates at 7.83 hertz, and the crystals vibrate too at a higher frequency of 32,768 hertz. Crystal, let's see. Consequently, it's through the crystal's high vibrations could raise or lower your vibe when we feel emotionally down or sluggish. This lady says that think of crystals as harnessing their own special properties, which can resonate with your vibe to change or heighten your mood. So is that true? You both have crystals. Have you experienced this?
Well, just going back to frequency thing quickly, like they vibrate at such a high level that it's a quantum vibration. So then actually neither physical nor liquid, but both and neither. It's hard to explain. So it actually is defined as quantum with how high it vibrates. But no, definitely it does work. I wasn't in a good stage in my life when I started bringing these things around, bringing crystals around me, and it has brought me into a better place in my life. Obviously, you're not going to get a crystal and everything just gets better, but it does have the ability to raise your vibration. And
oh yeah, well, if the Earth vibrates at 7.83 and crystals are at 32,768, you're definitely going to get some high vibes off of that.
Well, I would say that not every crystal vibrates at that exact frequency.
No.
Different crystals have different vibrational frequencies, and it's the same as individual human bodies have different vibrational frequencies, and individual human auras have different vibrational frequencies. The effects that we see that crystals have on human health and well-being are not necessarily the effects that they have on the human body, but on the human aura. And what you should be looking at is the vibrational frequency of the crystal versus, or the proportion of what relationship does it have to your vibrational frequency of your aura. You can measure that. This is not pseudoscience. Researchers like Nick Begich have developed actual scientific instruments where you could detect a human aura up to 10 meters away. So, and that's pretty significant.
It is, yeah. And I've read in studies that talk about how the government, believe it or not, has machines or ways to locate your specific frequency for every single human being on the planet. Because like you said, each person gives off their specific frequency. And by doing a specific frequency, they can like tune right into you.
Sure.
They don't need to track you with a sticker.
Just the fact that your ID or your passport, if you look at your passport, it doesn't matter what nationality it is, on the front there's this weird symbol that looks like a circle inside of a rectangle. Behind that is the location of a passive chip, whereby special sensors can detect that from up to 10 meters away. So, when they can correlate the signal from that chip with your individual auric frequency, then they can determine whether or not you're carrying the right ID, and that's how they can also detect currency that way, because the euro currency that we use here in Germany, that has a chip in it. Every banknote has a chip in it. You can find the location of that chip if you put it inside a microwave and turn it on. It'll burn out that area, and you'll see exactly where it is. That's how they can tell if you have if you're going through customs and you have more than a certain amount of cash on you. That's how they know.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. I did not know that. Did
Yeah,
not know that.
yeah.
But I do know that, they can tune in. Well, and I think that we all know so far, because we did a show where we talked about the zodiac signs somewhere along the line, and what determines your zodiac sign, and why is it that the person reading the zodiac signs can needs your birth date, the time, and the place you were actually born, so that they can hone in on that signal at that time, at that place, because that gives you your individual frequency.
hmm Yeah, yeah, I do agree. Even though I don't know a whole lot about astrology, but I do know that it does work. But
Yes.
only if it's done by a high level practitioner and not just reading, the newspapers, the
Mm.
horoscope section, because
Yeah.
that's usually kind of irrelevant. But yeah, if you can match the exact position of all the planets, all the heavenly bodies at the exact time of your birth, yes, that tells a lot about you.
Hmm. Yes. Yes, it does. I guess that's the only way I can think of it. It's like when notes are created on a scale, on a musical board. Your note was created on a specific point in that song, and that's how they tell, by triangulating the
And
points. So,
just like the Earth has its own vibrational frequency, or the Schumann resonance of 7.83, or that's the base frequency, each individual planet has its own Schumann resonance, so to speak. So the moon has its own Schumann resonance, the sun has its own Schumann resonance, and we can even pick that up using the various space probes and translate that into audible sound, so you can actually hear what does Venus sound like, what does Jupiter sound like, and all the other planets. So, and again, it's not the specific frequency that's that important, but it's the relationship or the ratio of, say, the Earth's frequency
mhm.
to another planet's frequency that will give you an indication of what of that interaction.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree. Okay, let's see. Let's go on to see, what does the science say about crystals. It says here, while the effects of these vibrations on our minds, our bodies, can exactly be proven by science, some crystals have been shown to conduct energy. That's what we're going for tonight, too. Is in 1880, a French physicist, Pierre Curie, discovered that putting pressure on crystals such as quartz, topaz, and tourmaline created electricity known as piezoelectric effect. It's the reason crystals are used in computers, TVs, iPhones, and satellites today. Crystals offer benefit in skincare too. The most basic level, powder rose quartz can gently exfoliate the skin, while jade rollers are cool to the touch, helping to eradicate puffiness and redness. But crystals can also be clever than that. For example, magnetized tourmaline is used by Pure skincare brand La Mer in its cleansers to energize skin and latch on to makeup and grime. Believe it or not, I did not know that. That's why I had to put that in there. Let's see.
Well, mica, and
Oh, there.
mica is something that has been used for a very long time and is still used today in pigments, especially eyeshadow, to give it that really nice shimmery effect and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many uses for crystals, and I just question myself. I'm like, we're using the crystals, but the big thing I'm questioning is are we using them in the right ways, or is there lots more ways to use these crystals than we even think of?
There's definitely far more ways to use these crystals than we think of. We're using crystals so much right now in our technology. We're on an LCD screen, it might be a man-made crystal, but it's still a liquid crystal display. We use sapphire, ruby, emerald, like in our basic smartphones, gold, silver, copper. They have a silicon chip, which is, yes, man-made. However, it's a natural substance. All of these, like all of our technology today isn't possible without crystals. So my question is, if they sort of are using these crystals in the technology, is our technology limiting what crystals can do?
Yes, exactly.
And
So let's go on to the next one. What is crystal vibration? How does it actually work? Let me read a few things. I'll read the highlighted stuff. Crystal vibrations are healing energies capable of eliminating negativity, promoting positivity. Scientists and researchers like Tesla and Anthony Holland proved that there are frequencies capable of destroying objects, like even cancers. We are not a medical thing. I'm just reading this. So anyway, as a result, healing could be regenerated as one type of interaction or communication between two entities of certain frequencies, because crystals contain a cluster of energies from ruling deities, astral bodies, classic elements, and universe itself. They contain healing energies too. Okay, wow. And it's amazing they could say that in there. They can energies from ruling deities, astral bodies, and we can determine its classic elements and the universe itself. But amazing how they put that in there.
Another thing I would add to that piezoelectric effect is that it goes both ways. Just that when you squeeze a crystal, it generates a specific frequency and a specific voltage. Conversely, when you take a voltage and you add that to a crystal, it will generate that same specific frequency back, and it generates the same one every time. And that's been known since decades ago. Like in the 1970s, everybody was wearing a quartz watch. Well, it was called a quartz watch because there's a quartz crystal in there keeping time.
Yeah. And I remember that. It's like, oh, I'm special. I got a quartz watch. But you know what? There's all the watches take quartz. They're all crystals.
Any electrical watch uses a quartz crystal. So all that means is that it's electrical.
Yep. Yeah.
Just going back for its ability to pass, the electrical current through to another crystal, could this potentially be a transmitter for wireless electricity?
Wireless. That's why they mentioned Tesla in there. Now I got that one question, and maybe people don't remember this, but we had talked about this once before, where you can take one crystal and touch it to another crystal, and it will wreck that crystal. I think you told me that. Remember, you don't want to put different crystals together because they cancel each other out.
That's just like the vibration. Like there's some, and literally they will just always fall off the shelf, or it just doesn't feel right. It's all a feeling thing within me, like within whoever's setting it up. Yes, I just, some crystals, in my opinion, don't go well with others.
Yeah.
But you don't want anything on too much of a high vibrational frequency, and then say something that brings you sort of down.
Yeah. Put a big one. Scotty Boy says, I put crystals in my water, but a big one, don't swallow it. Yes. Yeah. So that raise your vibration of water, and we're going to get to the water thing in a second.
It's almost like spices in a meal. Certain spices go well with certain types of food. Like for example, you wouldn't put marjoram into like an Italian dish, but you would put it into like a pork-based dish or a fish-based dish. Similarly, you wouldn't put oregano just anywhere, but you would put it into like an Italian meal. Things like that.
Well, that's the same way, like certain crystals don't go well with certain people. Some people don't like certain crystals, and other people will swear by that certain crystal for that desired outcome. When it comes to putting crystals in the water, my biggest thing with that is you don't know where that crystal's come from. Like, you don't know who's handled it. The water will eventually wash out like little bits of dirt in that crystal, and you don't want to potentially make yourself sick. I do find charging plates. So like I just have a little plate of crystal and I just sit a glass water bottle on that. So, you know, I'm just not a fan of putting crystals in water.
Interesting. Well, I didn't know that. Well, that's good to know.
The best way to use crystals is to actually find them yourself, because that way you know their origin and you know what type of mindset you were in when you found it, or to buy it from somebody whom you trust.
Yeah, I agree.
Not only that, we know things like clear quartz hold memory. They store different bits of information in them. If you found that crystal, you know it's your energy. It's sort of hasn't been tampered with for commercial purposes. It hasn't been mined because someone's just had to do it to feed their family. It's got your energy in it. And usually when you find something like that, like you said, you're really excited when you find it. That's really good energy it's putting into, you know, that you get from the stone that you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Let's see, here is my next slide. Crystals and gemstones have captivated people's imaginations for centuries. During our history, many civilizations have been puzzled by the beautiful shapes, colors, mysteries of crystals. These beautiful gems grow naturally deep inside the earth, and it takes hundreds of thousands of years for these stones to reach their perfect form. Why is a crystal also referred to as the flowers of earth? They grew from the earth and came into the world to bring beauty and good energies around them. Crystals are more powerful than we can possibly imagine. Having been on this earth for millions of years, they will be here long after we're gone. Why have crystals captivated our imagination since the beginning of time? Do crystals have energy or any hidden powers? Do you care to speak of that?
Well, yeah, they retain information. They have sort of like a memory, and that's been demonstrated by people like Dr. Emoto, who was working with water. And you know, in case you didn't know, water is a crystal too when it's in the form of ice. So it's also considered a mineral. And he proved this by imprinting various thoughts, feelings, or putting symbols on various containers of water, then freezing that water into its crystalline form, and then looking at those crystals under a microscope and seeing the differences in patterns. And there were radical differences in patterns. Harmonious and positive thoughts brought about nice and symmetrical crystals, clean looking crystals, whereas dirty thoughts or evil thoughts brought about ugly, murky looking, irregular formations. So he pretty much proved that that you can do, anyone can do this, and it's been replicated at least 40,000 times with the so-called rice experiment, where you take identical cultures of rice, or cooked batches of cooked rice, I should say, but in 3 identical containers, and have the class or whatever group of people meditate on them, one being neutral, one being positive, one being negative, and every time you get the same result, where the one that was meditated on, exactly just like that. Yeah. Where the one where it says the audio, that means I hate you, that's got all that black mold on it, that black fungus. The neutral one, nothing, and the grazia means thank you. It's looking the best of all of them. Yeah. So that's pretty much proof positive that thoughts and intentions create a certain frequency, which in turn affects crystals and water and living material.
I mean, a simple experiment like that can prove that we send out frequencies and interact with the water, and see. So I like I said, I had this all planned up here so we could. You wanted to see about the. Let's see here. Oh yeah, here we go. Hang on. No, let's go to this one.
Yeah, that is the Emoto experiment.
Yeah, here's the beginning. Here's the middle, and here's the end. That's the that's the thing. If I can blow it up just a little bit. Yeah, you can really see that.
You want to know something? If you want to create a device that'll do that that'll do the positivity thing to the water or to the rice. Just
Yep.
build yourself a replica of the Great Pyramid at Giza, and that pretty much is like a generator of positive intention, where pretty much anything that's placed in there will, for a while, will prosper. So let's say you keep water in a pyramid and then water your plants with it; those plants will prosper. After just 15 minutes exposure to a large pyramid, the human blood uh, actually changes. Every single value that you measure in the blood, like oxygen, platelets, all that, changes after just 15 minutes inside the pyramid, despite the fact that the human subject doesn't consciously feel any change.
So then my question is if we know all this stuff, why aren't we building our houses as pyramids?
Well, we are, because at least in the West, most houses have like a peaked roof, and
Oh, they
based
do.
on the Russian research, it's you don't need the full pyramid to get the full effect of the pyramid. All you need are the eastern and western components. So if that house is aligned to true north, which most houses I'm sure are not, then that peaked roof will have the same effect as a pyramid.
Oh, see, so if you build a house, align it to true north, and you should be good.
Yeah. Hmm.
You have your own pyramid. Nice,
That
nice, nice,
that
nice.
that's really
That
interesting too, because you would just the energy generated in that, like with what we know how a pyramid directs energy, the energy generated in those houses would have a lot of effect on their area then, would they not?
Yes, they would. And they would focus that up and down. The only real problem is in the United States. Most residential homes are built out of wood and covered with aluminum siding. And that's actually, if you've read anything about orgone energy, that's actually a device that's going to suck out your aura or your orgone energy, because it operates on the principle of alternating layers of organic and inorganic material. And when you put it in that configuration, it's actually sucking the aura out. Ideally, you would place the aluminum siding inside the house and have the wood on the outside. Okay, even though yet that would not be practical. But and the other thing is aluminum is not a good material, because they've demonstrated that at the Russian Academy of Sciences that you can make a functioning pyramid out of any type of material you want: steel, cardboard, cement, concrete, various metals, but not aluminum, which is
wow.
strange when you consider the fact that the that most of the pyramids are made of aluminosilicates, which means that yes, you can use certain types of aluminum compounds, but aluminum metal for some reason just negates the effect of the pyramid.
Well, that's a really good fact to know.
Hmm.
And yeah, so Lucky Smith says working with pyramids can focus energy in both ways. You need the right mindset for to work with the pyramid. Yeah, like you said,
Hmm.
it can either, if you build it right, it'll suck your energy out, or if you build it right, it'll suck the energy in. And if you
Hmm.
want,
Hmm.
you need to suck it in. You don't want it sucking your energy out. And
Yeah,
you know that,
ideally. Yeah,
yeah.
ideally you would incorporate the orgone principles into the building of a pyramid, where you would make it, say, out of wood, like plywood, make the frame and sides out of plywood, and then coat the inside with some type of metal foil, but not aluminum foil. You would want to use something like actual tin foil,
Hmm.
or use lead. Even lead foil will work.
Yeah. Um, and that's true. So if you live in a house, so basically, unknowingly, if you live in a house and you're situated to true north and you
Hmm.
got
Yeah.
aluminum siding on it and you feel drained all the time, it may be your house.
It may be your house. Exactly. Yeah.
And
Well, that's
unknowing.
why some people feel better at work, where most commercial buildings are made of cinder blocks, which are basically concrete blocks
Yep.
with some type of ceramic cement coating on the outside. Well, that's pretty much electrically and how would I say it, in terms of energy, it's pretty much neutral. So it's not having an effect on your aura whatsoever. But when you go inside your house, that house starts sucking the energy out of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, and look at here. And so we got this, and this is a part of the experiment, we were talking about, and the energy inside you. Now we're all made of water. That's why I kind of got this slide here, and we have crystals inside of us. And look what happens when you do certain things. Mozart's Symphony, image of John Lennon, love, a fumivoir before prayer. I don't know what that means. Peace, thank you, I will kill you, and fumigawa after prayer. I see.
Well,
So,
Fujiwara is a dam in Japan.
oh, okay. I didn't know what it was. Thank you for clarifying that. Anyway, so see, that's, if you look at those crystals, it's like telling you that the good things make a beautiful crystal, and the bad things really, like the I will kill you. Look at that. That crystal looks horrible. I don't want that. I don't want that floating around in me.
I don't really think they're crystal structures as such, because a crystal structure needs to have a certain form to it, needs to fall into one of the 8 different platonic solids. Those structures, and this, it doesn't, like these negative ones, it doesn't. So I think this is very much showing us that things with negativity, like on a base of negativity, sort of won't give us any structure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And because if you want to have structure, then you got to have the positivity. Negativity just tears everything down.
They look kind of like snowflakes, and snowflakes remind people of fractals. And what is a fractal? A fractal is something that's self-similar on all levels, on the macro level as well as the micro level, just like the universe. The universe is also a fractal.
Well, the thing I found really interesting about the words on water experiment and the way that the ice crystals formed, was you can actually go and have a look at the different chakra symbols, and you notice how some of the ice crystals are really complex there as to the words, and I think they very much sort of match up with like how energy is symbolized through the chakra points. So like certain words, so like thank you, for instance, it's very much coming from the heart.
Yes.
Well, to get to Truth Seeker's question, I would say, based on research I've read about, as well as my own research on pyramids, where I actually scientifically measured the various constants inside and outside the pyramids, the consensus seems to be that the pyramid at Giza, that angle, that 51 degrees, 51 seconds, 51 minutes, 51 seconds, that is the minimum angle that you need to get the pyramid's effect. That the Nubian pyramids were pretty much copies of the Egyptian pyramids, just that they were steeper, which means that, yes, you can have a steeper angle, just like the pyramids that they're building nowadays in Russia out of fiberglass, which are very steep, and which have demonstrated like some incredible effects, like being able to cool water down to 40 degrees below Celsius, 40 degrees below zero, and not have it freeze until the instant that you take it out of the pyramid, and it freezes like poof. So yeah, I would say that's the minimum angle. In other words, you don't have to necessarily worry about getting the angle right. Just make sure it's at least 51 degrees, 51 minutes.
Wow. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now, I wonder what would happen. Now, this is kind of an offbeat question. Now that we're on that, if you made a pyramid at home and then you went ahead and put your crystals in that pyramid, would that charge your crystals up then too?
Yeah.
Cool.
It could potentially. I'm only just starting to work with the pyramid now to make bismuth, and I have noticed I get better structure, like better formation with my bismuth, and like clearer crystals. Like the formation of the crystal comes out a lot clearer when it's under the pyramid.
Huh. Well, that's cool to know. All right. Well, let's see. What else do I got? I got some really neat ones. We got about the ion. We missed a bunch, but hell, we'll just move on. Ions are electrically charged particles. This is what it's about, the stuff. And they are virtually every natural water sample. They are common because water is so good in dissolving minerals. Salts such as sodium chloride, tablet salt, and magnesium sulfate, Epsom salts, are made up of oppositely charged ions, and these break apart in water by virtue of polar attraction of water molecules. Once apart, they are free to roam around in the solution, and they stay that way until the water evaporates or their concentration reaches the saturation point, and some of them settle out. Ions for metals such as iron and magnesium similarly dissipate from the solid state because of the polar attraction of water molecules. Now, as you were talking about that, before, is that you have these water molecules. It's same as snow. We were talking about Dalibor. You were talking about the snow. It comes down in flakes, and they're all crystals. But once it hits the ground and the sun comes out, it melts, and then it turns into water. They're liquefied again.
Sure, yeah. And of course, in the process, they absorb any type of vibration from that local area. So if if there was a catastrophe that happened there, then of course the water resulting from that is going to be affected negatively, or because rarely do good things ever make it to the news. We only hear about the bad things that happen worldwide. If there was something positive, then it would affect the water in a positive way. But it seems to me that the only way to neutralize water is to evaporate it and let it condensate out from the atmosphere as rain.
Yeah.
That the earth, because the earth is like the universal ground, that all electrical equipment gets ground into the earth. That means that the earth is like the universal neutralizer, so to speak, of all electrical charges, both good and bad, both positive and negative. So that's one way of recycling water on more than one level.
Let's see. Ions suspended in water turn into electrolyte. We've heard of electrolytes. By itself, an electrolyte usually has no net charge because it contains a balanced number of positive and negative ions. However, when you introduce an electrical voltage, the ions align with the polarity of the charge, creating a current through the liquid. See, everybody doesn't think about it, but water is very electrified, and so are crystals, right?
Sure.
And of course, here I dug up some stuff about this electrical conductive water, and you're never too old to learn something new. All my life, I've heard that water and electricity make a dangerous pair together. Of course, if you stand in a puddle of water and you touch some electrical stuff, you're going to get zapped beyond belief, people. And it's not good.
The interesting trivia about that is the fact that pure water, 100% pure water, which you don't get from a tap, is not electrically conductive. Actually, it is not, because I, among other things, I also make my own ormus on an almost daily basis. And if you try making ormus with pure distilled water, it's going to take you forever. The way you do it is you put the distilled water in, and let's say it's about 1 liter. And to that 1 liter, you have to put about half a teaspoon of regular tap water to get the reaction started. And then once you create some colloidal silver that serves as a conductor for that water, just like an electrolyte, the reaction proceeds much more quickly. So you're not going to take, I don't know, a week to make a batch of colloidal silver, but only a couple of minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I got one of those colloidal silver making machines. So yeah, I'll have to get with you about making some of that. That'd be interesting. But not tonight.
I make my own.
We're working on some other things. We got free ions in the water. Such as, water stops being an excellent insulator once it starts dissolving substance around it. Salts, such as common table salt. Everybody knows you can put salt water. Of course, that's called the ocean, everybody. And it's one of the best known. It's a chemical term, salt and ionic compounds composed of carnations, positively charged ions, and anons. Okay, negatively charged ions. In solution, these ions essentially cancel each other out so that the solution is electrically neutral. When a net charge, even a small amount of ions in the water solution, make it able to conduct electricity. So definitely don't add salt to your lightning storm bath water. When the water contains these ions, it will conduct electricity from such as lightning, a bolt, or a wire from a small socket, just like I was saying. As electricity from a source will seek out the oppositely charged ions in the water. Too bad if there is a human body in the way. Yeah, you don't want to get electrocuted. So when you go on like this, yeah, we know. But I wonder if the ocean would have more, because that's full of salt water. That's oh, we lost Mandy. Anyway, she'll come
I
back.
guess she was having bad connection or something.
I am too. I'm kind of froze up, but
yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
I can't unfreeze myself until I get done with the sharing. What happens if electricity hits the water? Will it? My question is, if you hit the water enough, will it make crystals out of it? But we don't know.
well, actually, what happens when you hit water with a sufficient amount of electricity is it'll fracture that into oxygen and hydrogen, and that's
Yep.
how they do make some of the oxygen or hydrogen that's used for medical or research purposes comes from electrolysis of water.
Oh, we got another question here. In terms of balance, from Carrie. Hello, Carrie. In terms of balance, wouldn't pyramid directionality be important? A pyramid on Earth's surface points towards the light. Wouldn't it follow that the underneath should point toward the dark? Huh.
Well, all the major pyramids that we know of, and they are worldwide. You got them in Central America, you got them in China, Bosnia, all over. Each of those is on a meridian of the Earth's energetic and magnetic grid. They weren't put there by happenstance. They were put there specifically for that particular purpose. And the evidence for that is the fact that most of these pyramids were made with stones that are not found in the area where they were built, which means in the case of like the Great Pyramid of Giza, those stones come from 600 kilometers away, which is a huge distance for the ancients to have transported it there. So yeah, and this applies not only to the pyramids but also other geoglyphs or geoformations like the standing stones that you find throughout all of Europe. In my country, we have quite a few standing stones, and they've demonstrated that each of them has like a differential electrical charge on its north side versus its south side, and each of them is a weak generator of radio waves, just like all the pyramids are. Like for example, one of the most powerful ones is the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun. That thing generates like a 12-foot or 4 meter wide beam of radio waves directly going up. Now, clearly, these pyramids served multiple purposes, and it wasn't just, preserving meat or facilitating the growth of crops or things like that. It's very possible that different civilizations used them for different purposes. In Egypt, the speculation is that they were used as a sort of resurrection machine for the king or the pharaoh, where the proportions of that sarcophagus inside the king's chamber is exactly the same as the outer dimensions of the Ark of the Covenant. In other words, the Ark of the Covenant can easily be suspended and placed into that sarcophagus that's inside the king's chamber, the Great Pyramid. And so, that could have been another thing. We don't really know what that was, what the Ark of the Covenant was.
Well, if you think about it, maybe the top of the pyramid wasn't, they say it was gold, but what if it was a crystal? And what if that the chamber, the king, the thing you were talking about, what if the Ark of the Covenant was the component inside of that,
Yeah, what if that was like the major thing? And I do agree with Chloe that, yeah, what we're calling the ancient Egyptians should really be called the ancient Egyptians, or the people who came before them, because we have no record in any of the papyruses or wall paintings of how these pyramids were built, even though there are references stating that the Great Pyramid took 20 something years to build. That's how long it would have taken to just cut the casing stones. In other words, they probably found the structure itself, put the casing stones on it, which would also explain why there was no entrance left, no door to get inside it left. They just covered it up, made it look all nice, and left it like that because they didn't really understand the purpose, although they understood the importance, but not the purpose. So, and you know that it's got a purpose when you go inside the pyramid. I've been inside the Great Pyramid at Giza. You can tell that it's definitely not designed for, like, I don't know, tourism. Because imagine this. Okay, you go in through the smuggler's entrance, which is the entrance that Alma Moon carved out there into the pyramid in the ninth century. Okay, because he was looking for gold. And so you walk about 20 meters, then to your left is the ascending passage. For that, you got to duck down into a passage that's about 1 by 1 meter or 3 by 3 feet and go about 45 degrees up. Then you hit the Grand Gallery, which is 8 meters tall.
Hmm.
It's huge. You go up also about at a 45-degree angle or so close to it.
Hmm.
Then at the top of that, you again have to get down into like a 1 by 1 meter passage. Then it briefly opens up into the antechamber to the king's chamber, where if you have a ladder, you can access those top chambers above the king's chamber. And then you get down again into a small 1 by 1 meter passage, and you enter the king's chamber. So it's kind of a complicated thing, and doesn't really make any sense. Like,
That is
why they would
so
do that?
true. Now, I mean, as much as I haven't researched as much as you have, but you're right. Every time I look at those schematics of the all those little chambers and the pathways and the tunnel deals, and so it's like, why would you need to put those in there? For
I
what?
know.
What's the purpose? Nobody's going up into those chambers up there. They're going to come down into that main area, and they're going to go to the certain places. But like you said, you got to have ladders to get up there. So then, what's the
Mhm.
point of it? What
It's
was it?
well, yeah, it must have served some. It must have had something to do with electricity, because we know that, for example, the two main above ground chambers, which would be the Queen's chamber, which is the smaller chamber with that creepy little niche in it that's kind of like gabled, and then you have the King's chamber, and both of those chambers have so-called ventilation ducts or air ducts that go out and lead out into the outside of the pyramid at roughly 45-degree angles. Each of them has two. Now, what would
Mhm.
you need two of these for, other than to put in like a positive and an electrical charge through some wires into a device that was located centrally within, like, the king's or the queen's chamber? And if the hypothesis is correct that the sarcophagus was intended to house the Ark of the Covenant, which some say was an electrical device similar to a capacitor based on the specifications in the book of Exodus, then you would be either charging or discharging some sort of capacitor for some sort of purpose, but nobody really knows why.
Yeah, nobody knows. It's lost technology. And
Hmm.
of course, what I got up on here too is we're gaining this technology. Look at this. Transparent power producing crystals could lead to invisible robots, self-powered touchscreens. I mean, like I said,
Sure.
these things are just going so far advanced. So then, are we going to come full circle one day and say, hey, we're going to build this pyramid and it's going to generate power? And oh my gosh, looks like the Great Pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a distinct possibility that we may rediscover some of those technologies in the future, because if if it is a yeah, it's called a pyramid, meaning the fire within, and it's a triangle, and yes, the location does correspond to the pineal gland. And see, the pineal gland is an interesting little organ within the brain because just like the kidneys, it's the only organ within the body that's designed to form a crystal. And that ties in with, the theme of today's discussion about the crystals.
Yes. Yes, it does. It sure does. It says, what does Dalibor think about the plasma crystal project? Have you ever heard of that? And creating crystals via ionized cold plasma using microgravity. Wow. You've done your
Wow.
research, Linda Brooks. Oh,
I've never heard of this, but it sounds very interesting, and um, I will be sure to look into this.
the
Yeah, plasma crystal
plasma.
project.
Wow. I'm writing
Hmm.
that one down. Good one, Linda. Good one.
Hmm.
Okay. And anyway, so I'm going to read a little bit of this here. Okay, this is what I wanted to try to get into in the beginning was hitting with that piezoelectric effect. Hitting certain crystalline materials will jolt of electricity that will change shape. Squeeze them and will jolt you right back. Scientists have used these so-called piezoelectric for decades in ultrasound, medical imaging. All you women know about that. The materials are so sensitive that they can pick up the motion of sound waves moving through the tissue. Now, researchers have come up with a simple new way to make the potent, transparent piezoelectrics, which could lead to improved medical imagery, invisible robots, and touchscreens that power themselves. Piezoelectrics are made up of either myriad tiny crystallites, or single crystals of a variety of materials, including ceramics, polymers. In both cases, a mix of atoms arrange themselves into a simple crystalline unit, typically the size of a handful of atoms. That's repeated over and over inside each of these building blocks. Excuse me. Building blocks. The atoms are arranged in a so-called electrical dipole, and with more positive charges on one side, more negative charges on the other side. Applying pressure to these materials can subtly alter the position of the atoms enough to rearrange the charges and produce an electrical voltage. Applying the electrical voltage is the opposite, forcing the materials to expand in one direction and contact of another. Yeah, so the
Well,
size of atoms, you can make a crystal the size of atoms. That is really crazy.
of course, yeah. And since we're talking about atoms and electricity, well, what is electricity? Electricity is the flow of electrons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and we call the science of that, manipulating that, electronics. But there's other subatomic particles that also have electrical charges that you can manipulate. Like, for example, most notably, the muon. Now, the interesting thing about the muon is that it also has a negative charge, same as the electron, and except that unlike the electron, it rotates or revolves around the nucleus of the atom at about 1/200th the distance of the electron, which means, the analogy that's frequently cited is that if the atom were blown up, it would be the size of a baseball in the center of a stadium, and the electrons would be little flies flying around the outside of the stadium. Well, these muons, they're like 1/200th the distance. What does that mean? That means that if you could create an electronic circuit which uses electrons, you could substitute muons for that, and they would work in a similar manner. But the thing is, if you were to replace all the electrons in any piece of matter with muons, which you could easily do just by charging it with the muons, it would decrease in size to 1/200th of its original size. And then once you were to ground it, i.e., touch it to the earth, it would regain its size by 200 times. So but that's theory. That's
Mm-hmm.
theory, and it hasn't yet been demonstrated like a shrinking ray or
Mm-hmm.
anything. But it's very interesting that the muon is tied in with the Great Pyramid. Not only its dimensions, that its dimensions are almost exactly 400, and each of the sides is 230 meters. Twice that size is 460 meters, and 460 meters is the length that a muon will travel at the speed of light before it spontaneously degrades into a positron and some other subatomic particle. You'd have to look that up yourself. Now, the other interesting thing that ties the muon in with the Great Pyramid is that you mentioned before the tourmaline, which is a type of pegmatite. The tourmaline is the only known substance that can either act as a lens for muons or store muons or detect muons. Now, the last two research groups that were sent into the Great Pyramid, the Korean one and the American one, that were set to map out all the hidden chambers, they were using the detection of muons, which are a secondary type of subatomic particle generated from um, the solar wind and its interaction with matter on its way to the Earth, where they were able to detect that hidden chamber that's above the Grand Gallery, roughly above the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid.
Yeah, I
So,
heard all about that. That's
yeah.
very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing. So there's more chambers in there.
In other words, those positive and negative terminals could have been that I was talking about before with the ventilation ducts. Those could have been not positive and negative in terms of electrons, but in terms of muons, for
Yeah.
all we know, or some
Yeah.
other subatomic particle, because we only know about electronics using electron. But what if we create electronic circuits that use other subatomic particles other than the electron?
Absolutely. See, and that goes back to, lost technology, because they built this pyramid and we still have no idea what it was used for, and we're still stuck on, like you said, electrons. But what if if they were using muons, and now we're just starting to say, hey, let's think out of the box, and
Hmm.
and that's where it all comes in. That
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah, the electron is stable. That's why we use it, because we can send it, from one point, 200 kilometers away, to from the power generating station to your house.
Yep.
You can do that with muons.
Yeah.
So that's one of the limitations.
Absolutely, yeah. So, we're going to go back to a little bit of this crystal stuff with I want to get into this, which was really interesting. Because everybody knows what a crystal is, but tap for electricity. How can we get this electricity out of the crystal? I think this ties into all of that too. I wouldn't doubt that the pyramid. Well, the pyramids are kind of made out of that block that's got crystal in it.
Sure.
So anyway, crystals such as quartz, and this is stuff we were talking about, a watch, can be tapped in for electricity using piezoelectric mechanical energy discharge method by securing the crystal and subjecting it to direct force with a permanent magnet. A detectable amount of electricity is released. This technology is used in cigarette lighters and gas grill ignition buttons. The unit requires no battery cell to operate. Continuously wrapping on the crystal will produce usable electric current, making a small crystal electric generator will take the average backyard inventor about a half an hour. Look at that. You can invent your own. Cut
Hmm.
the insulated. Oh, then it goes on about cutting the wire. But here's, I made this bigger. I got to make it small again. But I got a spot in here. And they got talking about crystals with different kinds of metal. Did you ever hear about that?
No, no.
Okay, so let's see, where is this? I got this somewhere here. No, no,
I
no.
mean,
I'll
yes. I
find
mean,
it.
most electrical components, like a full wave bridge rectifier or a transistor or a MOSFET, all those use crystals in combination, silicon crystals in combination with conductive wires, usually gold, or even the microprocessors use that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's what it was here. I don't know where I put it, but it was here somewhere. I was talking about the materials. Oh, making up a variety of materials. Oh, yeah, yeah. But they were talking about, like, if you hit it with gold versus if you hit it with silver, or if you hit it with aluminum, if you hit it with the different metals, these crystals would give off of a different effect, and they would change. If I could find it here.
See,
Um,
that's potential experimental research material.
I swear I copied it down, and now I don't know where I put it. The method of the detailed nature, unique breaking. Oh well, oh, maybe that was it. There we go. Metal. was a functioning semiconductor allowing electric current to flow through the small piece of metal to the crystal surface. The scientist to junction known as Scotch
Schottky
Schottky
junction.
junction, yeah, induces electric field in the semiconductor that excites the semiconductor strength underneath the metal, breaking its symmetry and enabling new effects that were not previously possible. And it's still with the piezoelectrical effect, but it's all about the crystal, different number of atoms, key techniques to breaking the symmetry of the crystal structure. That's what it was all about. This whole article, it was really interesting because the different metals can do this and change the crystal's frequency. It can, and make it do different things.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of like a crystal radio receiver, where a crystal radio receiver will pick up AM or FM band transmissions, and it doesn't need a battery to do that.
Yeah.
All you do is you just need an antenna that's big enough to generate the power that's necessary from the ether, and connect that to a crystal and to some type of a resistance modulator, along with a ground through a speaker, and voila, you have a radio, which means that it's potentially a free energy generator, because the Earth itself, as we know, generates its own radio waves. So if you can conceivably get free power by setting up a whole host of these antennas and hooking them up in a combination of series and parallel to get the necessary voltage, and you get free power that way. It's been done.
Isn't that what Tesla was doing?
Sure.
In some way, shape, or form, he was.
So was Farnsworth. Yeah. So was Farnsworth. So were a whole bunch of other researchers as far back as the 1800s. And a really interesting phenomenon would be like telluric energy, which is the energy of the Earth itself, where basically you put a conductive metal electrode in the ground at one point, and you put a different electrode into the ground at another point, and you connect it to a voltmeter, and again you will get a voltage. And so if you set up a whole series of these types of circuits, connect them together in the required configuration to get the voltage that you need, you can generate significant amounts of power, although it's not reliable because it fluctuates. It goes up and down, and that depends on things like the solar wind, solar activity, and also based on research done by people like Bill Beatty, he figured out that it's also dependent on the positions of the planets.
Oh,
that has an effect on that too. Yeah.
I think I got everything on here that I got. Let's see what else I got. That's a water ions and electrolyte hair dry. Okay, I think that's about all I got with my slides. It was kind of good to run off of them. Linda Brooks got a question. This is a study shows the atomic. Oh, she was talking about that. Yeah, the plasma crystal thing. Matter seeing individual particles interact and producing cooperative phenomena, crystallization, in order to create nanocrystals with plasma. Interesting. No. Go lay down. Go lay down.
No, I don't know too much about that, but plasma, that's a whole other ball game. Because for all intents and purposes, it almost behaves like a living human being, or I should say a conscious entity, so to speak. That ball lightning would be a naturally occurring form of plasma. And I'll give you a good example of what happened to my father back when he was a young man, and him and a couple of other young men, they were at his friend's like beach house, so to speak. And this had like a wood burning stove, and they were just sitting around, drinking beer or whatever. And it was during a rainstorm. And all of a sudden, all of them heard like this terrific noise outside this like beach hut or beach house by a lake. And all of a sudden, they heard it coming down the chimney. It entered the wood burning stove, which had its door open, exited the wood burning stove. It was this screaming ball of like electricity, for want of a better word, came up to each individual boy, just like checked them out, and then like headed out the door and
Wow.
then exploded with a terrific bang outside the house. So
Mhm.
it almost behaved like a living entity.
Wow. That is really nice and neat.
So yeah,
Just blows your mind when it.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much out there that we just don't know.
Yeah, but we do have to look into more of this plasma crystal phenomenon thing. Yeah, that's definitely interesting
Well,
because see, I'm the type of person that'll actually go out and do this stuff myself. And
mhm.
as I may have mentioned, I've played around with scale models of the Great Pyramid before I found out that you can use a higher angle, that it doesn't have to be as specific as that. And I noticed that the shape of the pyramid itself affects physical constants. And I was playing around with gyroscopes,
Mhm.
and what I noticed was that it it had the effect that it would increase the centripetal acceleration and also conservation of angular momentum inside that gyroscope. Namely, that for some reason it would spin about 0.2% longer than if it was spinning outside of the pyramid. And there's really, effect, yes, it is a very small effect, but it's there and it
Yep.
shouldn't be there under
Mhm.
conventional conformist science. So, what's really going on here? Is it decreasing gravity? Is it decreasing the coefficient of friction of the ball bearings inside that gyroscope, or
Mhm.
is it actually affecting the mass and
Mhm.
making it have more inertia?
Yeah.
Those are things I'd like to collaborate on with other researchers. If once I have more space to devote to this type of research. And I
Yeah.
think people should try building their own pyramids and doing their own experiments and not just reproducing those of others. Trying out things like building an orgone pyramid that would
Mhm.
incorporate the principles of Wilhelm Reich in its construction, which would be like an alternating sandwich composite of organic and inorganic, and see what that does, see what the effects of that would be. I also noticed that in order for the pyramid to really work, the Giza scale model, it had to be aligned towards true north.
Mhm.
Where I've heard from other people that it doesn't necessarily have to be aligned towards true north. You can make yourself a pyramid hat and wear that, and it's still going to have a positive effect on your mental outlook and mood and stuff like that. And that ties in with the magnetization of water and imprinting crystals and stuff like that. In that, intention is key. If you have a positive intention when you're drawing your water, that's very important, because then when you subsequently drink that, you're sort of like reinvigorating yourself with that positivity. So you should never, I always keep water bottles around here, just so I don't have to constantly run towards the kitchen on the opposite
Mhm.
side of the house. And I always make sure that I draw them when I'm in a reasonably good mood. I vortex them in the presence of a powerful magnetic field, which
Mhm.
adds to that water the electromagnetic aspect and not just
Mhm.
the auric aspect. So that helps. you know
Mhm.
various governments on earth are telling people to stock up on water, but I'm saying that that's probably not a good thing,
Mhm.
for one simple reason: that once that water is drawn and it's above ground, it's open to imprinting by negative thoughts and negative patterns caused by things like fear or apprehension or whatever. That, keep in mind that until you draw that water from out of your tap, it's been in the ground the whole time. It's
This is
been
true.
electrically neutral, magnetically neutral, and aurically neutral. So you might want to just draw just enough water that you need for maybe one day or for your plants or whatever. And you
Yeah.
know,
Either that or keep sending good intentions to your water.
yes, make a conscious intention of sending good intentions to your water. Yeah, by using the vortexing and
Mhm.
the doing so in the presence of a powerful magnetic field.
Mm.
Yeah.
We were talking about the crystals before Mandy dropped out, and we were talking about crystals being in like watches and things like that, and so forth, and digging our crystals ourselves, so we know that somebody didn't handle them. But there's so many things that are crystals are in, like say the computers, watches and stuff.
Go
Well, when
back.
they go through the computer, whoever was building that computer was having a bad day, passing it down the line. They're putting their intentions into that computer, or the watch was made. I hate this job. Well, now you
Yeah,
get that watch and you're wearing that watch that has that I hate this job.
yeah. Even though most of those crystals themselves are made by machines, yes, to a great extent. But yeah, you're right. But go back in time. What is the first use of crystals? The first use of crystals as a device was the crown of kings and queens.
Mm-hmm.
Kings would put this in their hat or metal hat
Yep.
or
Yep.
crown to accentuate that crown's power.
Yep.
That's the first known use of a crystal, is as quote unquote jewelry. But it was probably served a different purpose than just adornment or aesthetics. It probably served some purpose that the ancients knew and that they were harnessing. Because, for example, I know that we are all bombarded by all the frequencies around us, and there comes a time when you need to, for example, calm down or just be yourself or whatever. For that purpose, I actually discovered that tinfoil hats do work, except that tinfoil is kind of weak. Plus, it's aluminum, so it's not that good to use. So what I use is like a stainless steel salad bowl. Um, this comes from IKEA, and I just basically just bent it out of shape. And when you put this over your head, the first thing you notice is that it will calm you down. It it kind of like harmonizes your brain waves so that you're only thinking your own thoughts, and your own thoughts are not affected by all these Wi-Fi, cell phone radiation, or radio waves, or TV waves, or any of that stuff. So you can't wear this for a long time because it's kind of uncomfortable. I have others that I made out of copper, that have padding on the inside, so you can wear it for an extended period of time. But in other words, tinfoil hats really do work, and you don't have to ground them. They don't have to be grounded. They work by themselves, just like that. So yeah, it sounds kind of wacky. It looks kind of wacky, but there's something to it. So in case you're feeling kind of frazzled or discombobulated, it really does help to put a metal pot on your head, a stainless steel pot, and just wait a while. Just wait about 5 minutes, and it will calm you down.
Wow, that is super information. I wish
Yeah.
Max Vision was still in there, because he likes trying all that cool new stuff like that, because he's got problems with electromagnetic waves. But speaking of that, Max is having his show on now. Max Vision's got his show. So if you get done with here and you want to go over there, you go over there and support Max Vision. He's going to do some remote viewing, talk about all kinds of things. But his show is great. Please participate if you can. Stay up that late. And for you guys on the West Coast, or
It's
you're
5
up really
a.m.
late. You're up at
It's
5 a.m.
it's
Oh
5 a.m.
man,
my time.
I'm so glad you could stay up so late.
Well, I'm kind of a
Man,
night owl, so
no,
so
that's
it's not that much of a problem. But I usually do go to bed around like 5, 6 a.m.
oh well. There you go. Well,
Yeah,
that's all right. You can go to bed right after this. Too bad Mandy dropped out. I hope
yeah.
she's got her better connection. We'll have to have her on again. But like it says, I'm learning so much about these crystals and studying on them. It's just like it's all trying to fit together. These pyramids were made in a certain way for certain things, and who made them? Was it the Atlanteans? It was somebody who knew what they were doing, and they built, those things are so huge. They didn't build them just for the fun of it. That's
Yeah.
all I can say. They built them with a purpose, because
It's really overwhelming when you see it up close and personal with your own eyes. It's like just so surreal. And when I right before I entered the pyramid and I saw those chevron stones above the smuggler's entrance, I was the first thought that came into my mind was like, this thing is way older than just 5,500 years. Like add a couple of zeros. I don't know how many,
Yeah.
but it's way older than that.
Yeah.
So, that's definitely a subject that needs to be studied, because whatever message is encoded in that was meant to be decoded by us, by a civilization in the future that they knew would come about, that would have the technical and mental capability of deciphering whatever they left behind in there. Because when Alma Moon, who was the first modern human to like enter the pyramid in the 9th century, he was there looking for treasure. So naturally he was quite pissed when he got into the king's chamber and found exactly what's in there right now, which is basically
Nothing.
just an empty room with an empty sarcophagus. But although he did find like a wooden measuring rod, and a piece of what he described as glass that was flexible and could not be broken, which almost sounds like a piece of plexiglass to me.
Yeah.
So, and that disappeared somewhere. So although the measuring rod is in the Egyptian museum, so it's they didn't build it just for nothing. It must have served some sort of purpose that we still haven't discovered yet.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, these, and how do we know they haven't discovered some things in there, and of course wouldn't tell us?
Well,
Of course they would.
that ties in with the mystery schools, the hidden masters behind civilization that have guided our technological and societal development over the years, over the centuries, whose membership is secret and only shows itself through people like Madame Blavatsky or whatever, or Rudolf Steiner.
Yep. Yep. Well, anyway, we've gone a long time. It's late for you. You got to get to bed. I got to get to bed too. I'm on call, so I got phones here. So I'm a working crazy man, So anyway, thank you for coming, Mandi. If you're
Sure.
out there and can hear me, thank you all the way over to Australia there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
around here, we're all around the world. But anyway, thank you everyone for coming. This has been a great night. We learned a lot. If you got anything to add to this, please email me. Send me a note. We'll have another show on this eventually. We're going to do some shows on Atlantis. I got this cool Tartaria Atlantis book. I also got the Atlantis Encyclopedia. And just like you were talking about earlier, Dalibor, this is what I got. I got Earth Grids, the secret patterns of Gaia's sacred sites. Now, here's the one question I want to ask you before we go, and then we'll leave it off at that, because this is going to let everybody do a lot of thinking. And the idea is, if the pyramids are at the center, we'll call them the navel of Earth, right? And they're on the grid patterns, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Would it not be so far-fetched to think that Atlantis would have been on one of those grid patterns?
That is a distinct possibility, and I would I guess I would look for Atlantis on one of those grid points, that it would have been on the union of two or more ley lines, and they would have capitalized on that energetic union and somehow used those energies for their own purposes. Yeah,
Absolutely.
I think that's a distinct possibility. There's various theories about where Atlantis could have been, anywhere from the Azores to Antarctica to Cuba to the Rishat structure of Mauritania, various other locations. So,
it would have probably had to have a ley line or something connecting
exactly. And that got to us through Plato, specifically his great uncle Solon, who actually went to Egypt and found this out from the Egyptians, who also told him that we don't know our true history because it's been wiped out so many times by catastrophes that we were not prepared for. So maybe this should be a lesson for us all.
Yep, it is. Okay, well, Brandy Robbins says She says Randall Carlson thinks he's found Atlantis 3 shows back. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
I've heard about Randall Carlson. Yes, very interesting research. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, he is a good one to hear about. He's usually on what's his name?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan a lot. So
Mhm.
very cool. Go check that out.
Yep.
But like I said, anybody who wants to give me any scoop on their thoughts about Atlantis, send me an email. I'll be more than willing to listen. And we're putting together a Atlantis show. So keep your ears peeled. And well, and everybody have a great night. Remember, be the frequency you want to receive. I love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Peace.